From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. This is John. This is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. It is a Friday night, so we are talking about beer. And of course, with me, since we are talking about beer, is a man who is on a craft hard cider journey. He is the authority on Michigan craft beer. Sean, how are you doing this evening?
I feel like I had something witty lined up, and then I just, when we started recording, I went blank.
So all that craft cider has totally got you, thrown for aloof.
The brain worms from the craft cider.
That actually sounded pretty. I actually think I would have preferred the blueberry one you were talking about, but that didn't sound like a bad beverage. So.
Yeah, it's not bad. I feel like it's one you get it in a 6-pack, and I think that's kind of hard to drink something that sweet. 6 in a row, or
it sounds like if you had
right?
6, you'd probably have a pretty good hangover.
Yeah, so maybe 1 or 2. Drink responsibly, folks.
Yeah, that's what we encourage around here, is drinking responsibility.
Yeah.
Just like today when we're talking about beer. We're doing a beer episode today. That's why we're recording on a Friday night. Not that you're going to hear this on a Friday night, so it's not really going to matter. But
what's funny is they don't know when we record anyways.
Well, I just told them when we record.
So. Not normally, though. I mean, we don't publicize it.
Sometimes. We talked about it on one recently. It was Memorial Day weekend, and I realized, I'm like, this is going to come out like a month after Memorial Day. So
we're exposing all our secrets and showing or telling everyone how the sausage is made.
I like sausage. All right. So in other news, other than exposing our secrets, because we don't want to be exposing ourselves too much, we're talking about Arvon Brewing tonight. So for those who are not familiar, Arvon Brewing is a brewery out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And truthfully, I've not been to this brewery. Like, I haven't been to their tap room, but I grab a lot of their stuff when it hits the shelves around here. I've also used their delivery service once or twice, just because I do find that to be really cool. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through this episode. But they're a craft beer that the only thing I saw on their site is that they make beer for craft beer aficionados. I guess what that means is they make a lot of sours and they make a lot of IPAs and make some other stuff too, and it's generally pretty damn good. We have a different selection of beers to go through tonight to give some stuff a try, and we're starting with the same thing, right?
Yeah. Actually, 2 of the things that we're going to try are going to be the same thing.
That's right. So we're just pulling from the same spittoon over here. So
that's not an appetizing thought.
So we're starting with a beer that is called Breakfast Bowl. So this is a 5.5% kettle sour with blueberry, raspberry, strawberries, granola, vanilla, and lactose. So it's basically a parfait in beer form, is what it sounds like. I'm assuming this is one of the beers that is kind of thick and smoothie-like, kind of like the slushy beers. Usually when I see one of their more colorful labels that are real kind of basic like this, and they just say they're a sour, that's what I tend to get. But let's crack it open and find out.
All right, let's do it.
I got fruit all over my hand.
Oh, mine was fairly smooth.
Well, you are the authority on these things.
I don't know about the authority on cracking a beer. I feel like when you get to the point where it's just about to break the seal, it's like this Herculean effort to get it just past that threshold to actually crack it and to not spray it all over yourself.
Sometimes.
This looks
depends
very
on the
thick.
beer. This is thick, but I can tell you from experience with these, this is not as thick as some of these kettle sours that they do.
Yeah.
Especially if you get one of them that have the number and letter 2X in front of it. Those are straight like puree in a glass. It's got a very deep... Well, it looks like a bunch of berries in a glass. Actually, as I move it, I can see sediment and I'm assuming berries floating around in here.
Yeah, when you move the glass, it like the particles kind of slide around with the glass, but slightly delayed. It's a pretty cool look.
Definitely smells like a berry heavy parfait.
Yeah, and this is like super thick. The head is like, if you could describe the beer as being a dark, deep purple, that's a band, right? Deep Purple? And the head is just like it's like a purple shaded head. It's a really interesting look. I don't think I've seen a head on a beer look quite like this.
It's definitely got a very thick mouthfeel to it, as you would expect based off everything we just said.
Wow.
It's not nearly as heavy in body as some of those like smoothie beers, like a Smooge, or like, again, those slushy beers, or some of those that we've seen be pretty. And Arvon makes a lot of those types of beers too, or at least I've had quite a few of them from Arvon, and they do a great job with those also. But this is a lot closer to what you would expect out of a sour than like one of those smoothie type of shindigs.
I don't know. This one I got is pretty thick.
Yours does look like it's a little thicker than the one I got, but I don't know. Mine
This is borderline like a Smooge or like a 420, 450, 420 North, dude. 450 North.
Close enough.
Yeah, kind of beer. It definitely it rivals. At first, like on the pour, it had a bit of a transparency to it, but then as I got to the bottom, the sludgy, where it's all settled down, all the sediment, it really thickened up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost got like a viscous, like syrupiness to it as I sip through it, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. I'm not seeing a date on the can. In fact, I'm not sure any of these have dates on them. I know I've had this one for a little bit, to be honest. It's been sitting on my shelf for at least a month. I don't know why I hadn't gotten around to it. I guess I'd just been saving it for this episode, even though we've only talked about it recently.
Yeah, it was bound to happen.
Yeah, well, we have a list for those who are surprised by that. So, but yeah, I'm digging this. Like, I up until the last like couple of years, I didn't really get too into sours. They kind of weren't really my jam so much. And this is a very jammy type beer. This is pretty enjoyable. I could see calling this a breakfast beer. I'm not sure I always agree with the idea of having a beer for breakfast. I feel like I'm a little too debaucherous when I do that. Not that I haven't or won't do it again. But, if you wanted a beer to go alongside like a stack of pancakes or like a plate of French toast or something like that, you could do a hell of a lot worse than what's in this glass.
You know what they say. Can't drink all day if you don't start early. This definitely, I can taste the blueberry, strawberry, big time berry. I'm not really picking up, we've discussed, and I've mentioned in my videos, lactose can be a flavoring agent that adds, for me, can add like a aspartame-y, artificial sweetener kind of flavor. I don't pick up any of that. Yeah, you've kind of
ruined it. You've ruined that flavor for me as a result of it, but I'm okay with that.
You're welcome. So. Yeah, but I picked this one up last week from my store, and it was, I think they had recently got it, so maybe they did a couple batches. Let me ask you something. I'm looking at this can. It's a pretty plain can. It's got a nice, I like the heavier paper stock kind of label that they use. It seems pretty durable. One thing on this can that I see, and I see it not only on Arvon's cans, but I see it, or labels, but I see it on labels all across every different brewery you can think of. Keep cold, drink fresh. How often do you go to a store where a beer like this is actually chilled?
I could tell, not very, because most stores that have coolers don't really carry Arvon, and when they do, it's typically not in a cooler. But me personally, I actually see that as a negative, because when I go looking for a beer, I don't want to get it cold at the store if I can avoid it, just because I know there is so much damn beer around this house, among other things, that it might be like this. I've probably been sitting on this beer for a month. I might have been sitting on it for 3 months for all I know, since there's no date on it. I don't want to have to, if I buy something that is cold in the store, that means I know I have to allocate fridge space for it as soon as I get it home, where if it's at least at room temperature in the store, I can shelve it with all the rest of the stuff that's not in a fridge and just kind of pull it when I want to drink it. So I don't know that I've ever seen Arvon in a fridge. I might have, but I would actually see that as for me, and maybe I'm the minority on this one, or not the normal purchaser for this one, but I would look at that almost as a negative, because I don't want to be forced to put it in a fridge as soon as I get it home.
The only time I've ever, off the top of my head, that I can remember seeing Arvon in a cooler, Arvon beer in a cooler, is when they were still saying they were in Granville. I think they were in Granville. And I went to Siciliano's in Grand Rapids, or just on the outskirts of Grand Rapids, and they have that, they have all that cooler space. And they were selling their IPAs, or the New England IPAs, in those big, like 22s, or those bombers. And that was actually, it was Detour Reef. It's the first one I ever bought. They had a different kind of set of these New England style IPAs that they were doing. And I picked one up. But, I almost kind of think, if it says keep cold, drink fresh, or drink fresh, keep cold, whatever it says, whatever the wording is on there, keep cold, drink fresh. There we go. it makes me think sometimes like, well, is this shelf stable? Is it like stable enough to sit out? And that was one thing with Smooge. When Smooge first hit the market, they, store the can upside down, put it in a cooler, it has to be cold. And I rarely, and still to this day, rarely see a Smooge, number one, being stored upside down. I find it kind of humorous when I see that it's actually being, on the shelf upside down, but rarely see it on shelves, and people love it, and it must last. And I can tell you, in all the 40 states or whatever that Smooge is in now, that they're not, 99% of those stores are not putting it in a cooler, and people are loving the hell out of it. So it must be stable enough. But I think it's more like it's a marketing thing. I think it's, sell more beer. It has to be fresh, drink it fresh, make sure it's cold kind of deal. I think it's like a marketing thing, and like, buy more of our beer. You got to get it fresh. And some, even IPAs that say drink fresh, they're better if you let them sit for like a month, depending on the hops that are in it. So, I don't know.
I think, and I've been told this by a couple different people that own breweries, but I think there's also a self-preservation thing to your brand in putting the drink fresh on there, because I think most breweries know that whatever you buy, there's going to be someone that goes home and either does what I do and sticks it on the shelf, and all of a sudden, like, we both done this. Like, I was drinking a Double Two Hearted from 2019 2 weeks ago, or a couple,
Right.
you were here. So,
yeah. I helped you with it.
Right. So you get your beers that you should drink fresh, and they find their way to the back of a fridge, or they find their way to a back of whatever happens, and you drink it 2-3 years later. And most of the time they're fine. But I think I've more or less been told the reason why a lot of it's on there is when the brewery gives you a product, so that the most control they have of that product as far as what the experience is that you're going to get with it is right when you get it from the brewery. So as soon as it leaves the brewery, there's all kinds of things that it's a can. So, but just bear with me for the sake of this example. For all they know, you're going to stick the thing in a microwave, or you're going to leave it in the back of your car for a week and then pull it in. And then you're going to get this skunk beer. You're going to crack it open. And next thing you know, you're on Untapped blasting them, saying that's the most piece of shit beer that they ever had. And it's really through no fault of the brewery. So from what I've been told, the reason why they put drink fresh on there is because, realistically speaking, they don't know what the beer is going to taste like. If you sit on any beer for 7, 8, 9 years, whatever, they don't know what it's going to taste like in 7, 8 in that time. They don't know that you're smart enough to store it correctly, or dumb enough not to, or whatever. So it's also kind of got a self-preservation, like, try to ensure that your product is the quality that you want it to be when someone could potentially take it and talk about it, review it publicly, whatever the case may be.
I remember, kind of a side story, I used to, being an enthusiast like you are, like I am, and I'm sure there are people that buy way more craft beer, way more just beer in general than we do. But like you said, you don't know. Sometimes you buy a can, or you buy a 4-pack, or you buy whatever quantity, and it sits someplace, and you're like, oh, shit, I got this beer. When Holmes was really still before the pandemic, and they were really rocking and rolling with all these releases, and I was a Mug Club member there, I remember picking up one of their IPAs or double IPAs, and like, oh, I'm going to get this 4-pack. And I think it was like laser something. I can't remember which one it was, but I picked it up. I took it home. I think it was sitting in a box here in my basement, and it was a full year before it's an IPA, it was like a full year before I got a chance to try it. And most beers that I find, I'm like the ancient beer collector. I have like so many beers that I've forgotten about. I have more beers that I've forgotten about than ones I remember I have. And
look at those Oberons from like 2008 or something.
Oh yeah, no, older than that, I think. And I should crack one of those on video. But I went to Holmes, and I tried the Laser Light, or whatever it was called, Laser Light Show, I think is what it's called. And I tried it, and it was actually still pretty good, like pretty stable. I don't know what it tasted like fresh, because I drank it a year later. But I went to Holmes and I saw Tommy Kennedy, the owner, and I was like, hey man, I found this 4-pack of Laser Light Show, and I tried it. And he's like, oh man, don't do that. And I was like, no, I tried it. It was pretty good. He's like, yeah, don't tell a lot of people about that. I think that's pretty much the gist of what he said. Yeah. But that was just kind of interesting. There's so many beers that trying it, even, not keeping cold, drinking fresh, that are still in pretty good condition, regardless of how, within reason. You don't want to sit on it for too long. Like I did a video for Mars for Bell's Mars when that got re-released, and I tried it like 2 or 3 years later, and that didn't hold up very well. But most beers seem, especially canned, and they say like heat really isn't that big of a deal with beer. It's more the light that
Sunlight.
that skunks it. So I think with cans, as long as the can doesn't get squishy or it wasn't squishy to begin with, and it doesn't leak or the seal is broken somewhere, it's generally still pretty good. I mean, I don't know how long I'd sit on one, but I think 6 months, 8 months on IPA is okay. It's probably not optimal, but it's better than nothing.
I had a same thing. You buy it and it just kind of shuffles its way. It's like it just hides from you for however long. I had a 2-year-old 4-pack of Oktoberfest from Drafting Table. When I found it, I actually texted the brewers like, do you guys want me to bring this up? This is like 3 years old. I'm sure it's still fine, but maybe you guys, because it was right around the time that Oktoberfest was coming out last year. So we side by side and did a little mini vertical of like a 3-year-old one and to the current one, which they were geeked about because they could kind of see the progression of, the beer they're making.
Yeah.
All that happened is it just got really, really damn malty. Like it just turned into like a straight malt beverage with like a hint of everything else on it. It was still good, but it was not necessarily the same beer at that point. So
yeah, it changes so much in that time. So speaking of malt beverages, do you have a favorite 40 brand?
Does PBR count?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's not really a malt beverage, is it?
No. Well, I guess it depends how you define malt beverage.
I guess everything's a malt beverage that's a beer, right? It has malt in it.
Right. If you take PBR away, God, I haven't drank a 40 of like, you're talking like a malt liquor type beer?
Yeah, exactly. Like a, Camo or
I'd probably say Mickey's, but it's been forever since I've had one. I remember them not being a good time when I had, like, I remember a lot of bad nights and that turned into worse mornings when I would get involved with malt liquor. So.
That's a good way to put it. I don't know if you've heard my kind of spiel on malt liquor, right?
Didn't you like that one that Founders did?
I like malt liquor a lot, actually. Mm-hmm. I like the Founders one, which was that DKML?
DKML.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I like that collaboration that Old Nation did with Dark Horse, the German Hobo, and I think Laughing Clown from Oddside. They're, to me, and I've said this a few times, so, humor me if you've heard it, but they're like time machines, but you can't go backwards. You can only go forward. It's like, I'm going to drink a 40, I'm going to drink 2 40s, whatever it is, and I am instantly transported. I awaken, and it's some amount of time later, and I'm in the future. I mean, it's not like super distant future. It's usually the near future, but good time machines, man. Good time wasters. You anxious about something? You got something deadline coming up that you want to sleep through? Drink a 40, drink 2, enjoy your sleep. I had this roommate. We lived across the street from this liquor store, and
this is the same podcast that just said drink responsibly like 20 minutes ago, right?
Yeah, this is responsible. This is a responsible drinking story. It was hot as hell. It was like 90 degrees at 10 o'clock at night. It was like one of those nights. And I had a friend over, and my roommate and my friend and I went and got 40s, and we're drinking, and my roommate, he's kind of, at the time, he was kind of a little bit of a lightweight, so he drinks his one, and my friend, he goes outside. We're like, oh, okay, Phil's going outside. 20 minutes later, he doesn't come back in. We're like, well, we're not really in much of a condition to be walking around. We're conscious and everything's, working in order. And we look out, and he's sitting on the ground, just sitting there under the window. Like, I don't know if he was passed out or what. It's like time machine, man. He was in the future. So it's a good way to kill some time, drinking a 40. That's the end of my story.
When I would involve myself with 40s, I was still kind of doing the roadie thing. So most of the time, if 40s were like malt liquor 40s were involved, there's a lot of like Budweiser and PBR and 40s like that too. But if there was that kind of 40 involved, you basically knew that you were going to get in a fight that night. And then, like I said, it just went downhill from there.
Who would you be getting in the fight with? Like, was there a specific person or just anybody? Well, it's a time machine. You were in the future.
So, like I said, I was working as a roadie, so it was someone who got on stage typically.
Okay.
And
so not somebody you knew.
Oh, God. No. No, I made a point of avoiding people that I knew if I'm drinking malt liquor. That was some very pink looking water.
Yeah, I gotta switch glass for the next beer we're gonna talk about here.
I did that intentionally. So while you're getting ready for that and I'm polishing this off, this brewery will deliver to 11 different areas of the state. There's 11 different zones they have. They cover, I don't really know the best way to like word this. You know, you always see people using their hand as like a map of Michigan. Basically everything from like your finger line down roughly is about where they're going to cover. There's some gaps in there, but that's the majority of it. We've both had experiences with this, but I know part of this was the whole 2020 debacle and that like shit show that a year that it was, but I never expected some like dude in an Arvon hoodie to pull up to my house in his fucking Tempo and come out with literally 2 cans of beer and be like, I have your beer. It blew my mind. It was only like $5 to have them deliver it at the time.
Well,
something like that.
Let's be fair. It was probably like a Corolla or something. It was not a Ford Tempo.
It was, yeah, probably.
It was a compact. But yeah, he had like that's the same thing that happened to me. I got a glass. I've had a couple glasses actually from them. But yeah, they just anything on their store, which is really cool because there are places I've been looking at, breweries that are out of state, and they won't even send you merch. You know, you can't. Some places you can't even order merch. It's like I don't. I mean, I like your beer, and I'd love if you could deliver here. Damn Michigan and their laws. Like I was looking at Hidden Springs in Tampa. It's called Tampa Heights or something where they actually are, but they have all types of merch, shirts, pins, all types of really cool stuff. And I really like their beer. I just, I can't get to Florida every day to go pick it up. So I'd love if you could ship me
drink more malt liquor. You'll get there.
Yeah, true. You'll wake up in Florida one day, and that's just where you live now.
Yep, more or less. I haven't run into that with much like merch being unable to ship, but I also don't look for merch very often online for beer stuff. So maybe that's why. But yeah, the whole shipping laws in Michigan are fucking bullshit. And it's weird how they like got rid of them for like an hour and then they put them right back in for no real fucking reason.
When did they drop them?
They dropped them at some point during the pandemic because I started getting Tavour packages again, and then they pulled them because they couldn't ship them to me anymore.
Oh, maybe it was like something happened, like an injunction, and they got a temporary kind of deal.
Must have.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know.
like, I got 2 or 3 different boxes. This is when I was still doing the San beer thing. They were just sending them to me for like comment, basically, and they sent me a box of like 9 beers. I'm like, I'm not going to review all of these. I'll review 2 of them. They're like, that works. All right.
I think I remember that.
So we're on to beer number 2, which is Incendiary. So there's not really a whole ton of information on this that I could find other than it's a Pilsner. It's a black Pilsner. It's about 4.5% ABV. It said that it was a dude named David something. I don't know who that is, but
David Murphy was a brewer that he worked at Ascension for a little bit. And I think I don't know where he was before that, but yeah, he was at Ascension for a short period of time. I find it funny on the label here. It says Black Pilsner brewed and inspired by David Murphy, but black is spelled BLCACK. That's an interesting way to spell it. Maybe that's on purpose. I doubt it.
That's very interesting. I didn't notice that. Thank you for pointing that out. So
I am the master of finding interest in the mundane.
This looks like a porter or like a stout. Just looking at it in a glass.
Yeah, pours like a porter.
A little bit. It smells like a Schwarzbier almost, which is a good thing to me.
It's got a nice kind of tan colored head. This kicked out a bunch of head, this Tiku that I'm pouring into, but
yeah, mine. It's not your glass. It's the beer because I got a bunch too.
It's got a real smoky nose to it.
I like this. So I don't know if you've been seeing this, but I've been seeing a lot of different dark lagers pop up over the last 6 months or so, and I'm 100% on board for that trend.
Yeah, down for it.
Oh yeah, for sure. It generally just kind of adds a little more maltiness, some smokiness, a little more roastiness to your white-bodied lager, pilsner, whatever it is, and this is kind of right in that wheelhouse. Haven't actually got to the beer yet, but I mean, on the nose, taking a look at it, I can't see through this. I don't know about yours, but this is
not
dark. This is about as dark as I've ever seen for any lager, now that I think about it. Outside of Massacre.
Yeah, it's not cola colored, it's black. I mean, that is super dark.
It's almost got a little bit of a cola flavor, though. I don't know if I'm just getting that now that you said it, but it's got a little bit of that like cola like bite to it. You know, if you didn't tell me this is a Pilsner, I don't think that I would call it a Pilsner, but it's delicious.
I feel like some of these, I've been hanging. I provided John with this beer, but because we saw it when they were. You're welcome. And I didn't bring that up so I could get praise, but thank you very much for it. We saw this pop up on the website for delivery, but it was one that they said was going to be taproom exclusive, and they weren't going to offer it for delivery. And then it hit distribution, which was really cool. And I want to say that
I feel like that happens a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like, I think all those Halloween, that candy series that they did around Halloween, the really awesome stouts that they did in like, I don't know, 10 different like quadruple New England style IPAs or whatever they were.
It's like 10 or 12 beers altogether. It was pretty impressive.
It was a lot of stuff, but seeing this on shelf, and I feel like I have seen dates on these before in previous iterations. That's one thing too, not to beat a dead horse, but this store cold, drink fresh, which this one doesn't say on it. If you don't put the date on it, how do I know it's fresh?
Yeah, but I mean, we have the same gripes about things on labels to begin with. Like not all these things are not on this, but like I want some kind of thing to know when this beer was packaged on every label. I want something to know what kind of beer this is. I want to know what the ABV is because I want to know what I'm getting myself into before I open it. And I don't feel like I should have to do research before I drink a beer. That seems silly.
Yes, Shorts.
Yeah, well, Shorts' labels, although they have some fun artwork on their label, and I like a lot of what they do, their labels, as far as the information, or more accurately, the lack of information on their labels, it's fucking pathetic. And are they still like the third biggest brewery in the state, something like that?
Last I heard.
They got to be up there.
Yeah, they have to be a top 5 at least.
Yeah, for the size that they are, like, I don't understand why. I mean, they have a whole backside of most of their bottles that's just empty.
Yeah, because it's not a wraparound label. It's a regular beer label or a bottle label with just the front part. There's nothing. Yeah, there is no back.
So either print a wraparound label and put that information on there, or make a little sticker. I don't care how you do it. Just put something on there that tells you that.
So let's talk about the tasting notes on this, because I don't know if we actually ran through it. Definitely very smoky, really malty, like toasted malty kind of flavor. You said cola,
which like a little hint of like campfire smoke on the nose. But yeah, I'm still getting cola on it.
Actually, on the nose now, on the rather than out of the can. I don't know if you sniff out of the can. I know I'm weird about that. I didn't really pick it up on the can, but on the glass, I definitely get a little bit more of a cola kind of vibe to it. But this is really interesting. And just to kind of hit back up on your point, this seems like not only is everyone trying to push upon or impress upon the year of the lager, which it seems like every year for the past like 3 or 4 years has been year of the lager. It seems like this is really year of the dark lager, right? We have Brew Detroit doing their Oscura, which we talked about a couple episodes ago. We have, now that I bring it up,
did one in fall.
Yeah, now that I bring it up, I can't think of any other ones, but I know that they're out there.
Earthen has one, or had one. Like I said, Drafting Table did one in fall. I want to say I got one from Eastern Market or Ferndale. I could be wrong about that.
That sounds familiar.
I know I saw one. In fact, I had one at Urban Rest last week. So they might not all be in distribution, but they're definitely in tap rooms.
Yeah, I just feel it seems like they're really pushing on lager. I know that we talked, Old Nation, Travis Fritz from Old Nation does a podcast, and he talks to basically people in the industry. And I listened to the City Built one, and that's what was really, City Built wants to move into starting to do more lagers, if I could say that. And it seems just like, and obviously, of course, Travis, with having a German, traditional German brewing background, he's all about lagers. They were really had a lot of interesting things to say. Did you listen to that whole thing?
I haven't listened to it all yet, to be honest with you.
They really talked about.
I've been still stuck on Albumer as opposed to anything of relevance. So
they were really talking a lot about, the fads of brewing and people making these crazy, like, oh, I can make this beer and throw a bunch of stuff into it, this IPA, and throw all these fruits into it, and hey, this is this new thing, and that seems like obviously what everybody wants to drink, and that's what everybody's rating, spending all their untapped bottle caps to put on those beers. But the appreciation for like doing a traditional style, like a lager or like a porter or a brown or just those, beers that you expect or you used to expect to see it, that every brewery had, and doing that to as close to perfection as you can do it. And really just kind of putting the craft back into craft beer basically was kind of the gist of it. It was really interesting to hear Edwin and Travis, Edwin from City Built and Travis from Old Nation, just kind of break it down. And Ed even said, stuff like where there were beers that they put out when they first started distributing beer that they weren't necessarily like beers that they liked, or that they didn't necessarily think were great beer, but now that they don't distribute and they can kind of hold more back, they've kind of started to, sharpen their steel to get their message a little bit more pointed in the direction they want to go to. Not that they won't do this crazy, guava, passion fruit,
Sure.
kettle sour or whatever, but they're trying to refine their thing to really get it to where they want it to be.
I still need to get back over that. Well, that was something we had talked about doing this weekend, but that's neither here nor there. But that place, I miss their stuff coming over here, and I still talk to one of the brewers. I talked to, I don't know if you talked to Nate. He used to be at Ascension too. Who's over there?
Celery? Calorie?
Yeah, something like that. When they did I forget what the name of their, I think it's a Pilsner. It's got like a big lion on the can.
Do you have like the Hooligans one? Is that it?
It might be. It's a really fantastic. It's either a lager or a Pilsner. It's something along those lines. I haven't had it in a couple of years now because can't get it over here. But they did a black version of that too, and I want to say that came out in February, maybe March. It was still snow on the ground, so last week. But that was one that I was like, man, I might have to drive out there just to get that. And he's like, you're gonna drive across the state to get a lager? I'm like, yeah, so maybe. But yeah, that brewery, man, talk about a brewery that just kicks out some fantastic beers, and it's a bummer that we can't easily get them right now. So,
yeah, but if it's helping them meet their bottom line by not
for
distributing,
sure, by all means,
I'd much rather see a place that does quality stuff stick around than for them to send me beer.
I'd rather see good people make, have a better business than worry about me. And I'm going to find beer either way. So
right. There's no lack of things to try and drink.
No, not at all. That just gives me more of a reason to go back out there. Not that I really needed more of a reason.
There was something I was going to ask you and I can't think of what it was now. It'll come back to me. I'll just interrupt you whenever it comes.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. So we haven't really strayed from beer yet in this episode. So let me ask you this. I have a theory that Apple has a crazy little kill switch button that they hit whenever they do a not a press conference, their Apple events. Have you ever noticed that whenever they start announcing new stuff, all of a sudden, like, your phone starts running really shitty, or you like all your Apple products start acting kind of fucking wonky for like a week or two after the event? I have a theory that they hit some button, some make it shitty button for a couple weeks to try to make maybe I do need a new iPhone. Any thought on that?
I wouldn't say that that's beyond the scope of reality, but I don't really notice that. I know WWDC, right? Worldwide Developer Conference, isn't that an Apple event? And they announced like the MacBook Air 2, M2.
Yeah, that was like Monday, and my phone's been acting like a real dickhead ever since then.
Which one do you have?
The 12 Pro. So I'm only like a year behind you.
Yeah.
So.
No, I don't generally. I mean, I used to be a person that really chased, like, I was on Android. When I was on Android, it was like, oh, the new phone come out, the new Samsung Note, 82 came out. I got to get that one, or, whatever. I kind of stuck to Samsung after a while, but since I moved to iPhone, I don't know, 3 years ago or so, I don't even care. I used to kind of chase it, and I think when I got to 13, I was really like, I'm getting that. It was a whole 2 years since I got a new phone, but I was pretty happy with I had an XS before that, and I was pretty happy with that. Now I have the 13 Pro, and I don't really see myself upgrading anytime soon. I don't charge it for like 3 days at a time. I don't really need to. I
get about a full day out of mine on a good charge. Like, usually I can get from like morning to around like 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I don't get 3 days for sure. for the longest time, I've been a every other year upgrade person. So I've been on Apple for phones anyway since it's either the 5 or the 5S, something like that. One of the smaller, skinny ones.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I upgraded. My logic was upgraded on the year with the letter. So the 5S, the 6S, whatever I was like, that's the year that they just take it and they fix all the shit that didn't work and whatever the new model was.
Yeah, it's refined
So,
at that point.
Yeah. And then they kind of threw that out with the 10 and I think that's why I had it. Well, did they do a 10XS or some shit like that? Something like that?
That's the first one I had was the XS.
Yeah, so I had that one, I believe. And then I skipped the 11, which was the first one with the like stovetop camera thing. Then
What?
It's the stovetop camera. If you ever look at your camera, it looks like a little, cooktop.
Oh, okay. All right. Never thought of it that way, but okay.
That
I could see it. I could see it.
Seen a bunch of memes of it. Anyway,
never referred to it as never seen it referred to as a cooktop or a stovetop, but I could definitely see it.
You're gonna get some memes now because of that. So
okay, well, it's heard me say it, so they're just gonna pop up in my social media.
Well, that's true. I don't even have to do anything now.
There, thanks.
Yeah, great. But yeah, I don't know, man. Ever since whatever the conference was they did this week, like I said, every 30 minutes, my fucking Wi-Fi or my internet connection is just like, yep, nope. I'm like, fuck. Like, you were fine yesterday.
Not today.
Turn off your kill switch, Apple. I'll probably buy a phone in fall when you put a new phone out, but I'm not buying it in fucking July when a new one comes out in 3 months. 4 months, whatever. So.
I'm still looking at that City Built beer, trying to find the one you were talking about.
What are you watching this week? I'll find the beer while you do that.
I have been, we're getting to this late. I've been still watching The Boys. If you haven't watched it, which I know you haven't because we talked about it last week and we talked about it before and you said you didn't watch it. I gave you my Peacemaker.
I still haven't watched it.
I gave you my Peacemaker recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
My next recommendation for you to fill your superhero quota until the next Marvel thing comes out, which probably comes out in like a week. I don't know. The Boys, Amazon Prime. As long as you have it, you can watch for free. If you don't have it, download it. It's good. Still watching Barry.
I have it.
Okay. Yeah, still watching Barry on HBO Max. It's so weird. It feels like the season just started. It's like almost over. I think they're on episode 7 or 8. And I found out that Alone on the History Channel started the new season 9. So I've been watching Alone. I watched the newest one today before we recorded episode 3.
Oh, that's the one where they have bears chase people around, right?
Yeah, they drop them off in the woods and they get, 10 items that they get to pick to take with them. It's not like Survivor, but they live alone basically. And I think they have to make it a minimum of 60 days, but they see how long they can live in Labrador in Canada. I think that's like British Columbia or something. I'm not really sure exactly where that is. Maybe Northwest Territory, but it's like extreme harsh wilderness. And they have they're generally people that are survivalists or they have some kind of training. It's been a few years since they had like Yahoos. There was this one season, I want to say it was like season 6, where this guy they used to do these pre-interviews, where they'd show the reel that they used or their interview that they used, their audition, basically, audition tape. And this guy was talking about how he was like a ranger, an army ranger or something, and he was blah, 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 and this, that, and the other, and he talked himself up really big, and they drop you off on a helicopter, they take you out on a boat, and they just drop you off with all your supplies, and they leave you. And I do think they do come check on people, but this guy was all gung-ho about it.
They give you a camera, so...
Yeah, they have cameras and batteries and stuff I think they have to drop off. So you do have human contact because they start they do medical checks to make sure that these people aren't going to starve to death or, have low or high blood pressure, whatever issues that can come. But this guy was so gung-ho, he lands, I think he was there for 45 minutes, and he saw bear shit. He's like, oh, that's bear feces. And he calls the thing... He called the helicopter and they took him out within 45 minutes of getting dropped off. And the thing is, these are people that this is what they do. A lot of these people are guides or they're instructors. One lady this season's she's like a primitive living, like those people you see on YouTube that build their mud huts and shit and they live out in them for their lives. this lady does that. There's another lady that's just like instructor for survival. And, you know, these people are professional survivalists. This is what they do. Or they're like extreme hobbyists, you know. And
Sure.
this guy takes a spot and he just like, oh, bears? Nope, I'm out. Nope, come get me.
Yeah, so it's one of the shows. So before we go back onto that, the beer is called Prague Underground. It's a Czech Pilsner. So,
Apropos
with
of nothing.
yes. So my wife watches that show. I've kind of half watched it just because it's kind of funny, but she's always laughing because she likes the guy or girl that just kind of sits in the forest and goes, "Hey, bear,"
Yeah.
and kind of tries to, I guess, scare them. I don't know. Doesn't really hold my interest. I've never really been big on that type of reality show. For whatever reason, I like my reality shows to be like aging rock icon, like Bret Michaels has to make 40 women like fight for his affection.
Ugh.
Those are the type of reality shows I tend to watch.
Ugh.
Yeah, pretty much. Not necessarily good or bad, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
you know, it's all garbage.
catch anything else this week, or is that pretty much it?
No, you know, I was thinking yesterday, I was thinking like, what am I going to say I watched? And I know I watched other stuff and I can't remember any of it. So it must not be that important.
I watched, I shouldn't say finally because this movie was fucking terrible. I watched Bill and Ted Face the Music.
You didn't like that? I mean, I haven't seen it, but I've heard decent things about it.
It's short, so that's good.
It's always a redeeming quality. It's short.
It's short. I mean, I didn't really like Bill and Ted that much to begin with, so maybe that's where the problem is. But if you said the premise of this movie is Bill and Ted are 50 and just left it at that, that's exactly what you get for an hour and a half.
It takes place in like the future though, right? They're like in this.
It's like back and forth between the now and the future, and
The future shit, they're like
You know.
cyborgs or robots or something, is that right? And it's like where they failed and that's like
Yeah,
the
there's, like,
shitty future.
one cyborg, and he kind of looks like Ultraman, but like more shitty
Oh,
somehow. I don't know.
That's hard to achieve.
This is another one that's on Amazon right now, and I mean, if you like Bill and Ted, but I thought it was pretty fucking dumb, and I'm a Keanu Reeves apologist in a lot of ways. Like, I know he's a bad actor, and I know he's kind of devoid of personality, but that's also kind of why I like him. He's like,
He's a blank
yeah, but he's
slate.
harmless. He's harmless, you know. I don't think Keanu Reeves is ever going to get in any real trouble or any shit like that. So I like Point Break. That's a fun movie.
Breaking news. They found old tweets of Keanu Reeves and he's now canceled. Just kidding.
Was he canceled for sitting on that bench?
Sad Keanu.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Then I caught the new South Park, the Streaming Wars. They're calling it like a streaming event, but it's really just like 2 episodes crammed together. It's like an hour long. It's like the COVID ones they did that are on Paramount Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't really a big fan of it, and I think that might have been part of the joke, because half the joke, like things they keep saying in the episode, is that streaming is getting so bogged down that they just put shitty content on it like all over the place, and it doesn't matter. And after I finished, I'm like, that really wasn't that good. There was like 1 or 2 like really funny moments in it, because it's still South Park. Like, there's always something. Butters has a really good moment where he just starts cussing out someone because he's all like junked up on popsicles. But I was like, I wonder if the joke was that they made an hour-long shitty streaming episode, and I wouldn't put it past them to do that.
That's how they get you. Get you.
What I have been liking, though, that I'm only about halfway through it. It's 6 episodes. I've been watching We Own This City. So did you start on that, or did you? I know that's on the HBOs. So
Yeah, no, I that's one that's definitely on my radar to watch. I haven't started it though. Are those hour-long episodes, like 58 minutes?
Right around there. I'm
Okay.
not sure if it runs an exact hour, but it's an hour like time slot, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's right around there. So I'm not going to ruin anything with it. Like, I'm not going to be that asshole, but I found this show, or got interested in this show, because I'm a big fan of The Wire, like most middle-aged white guys.
Yep.
You know, you like The Wire.
Hand raised.
Yeah, exactly. This show has a lot of that feel, mostly because it's an HBO cop show that's in Baltimore, so it's got that same like gritty, The Wire type feeling
Well,
to
it's
it.
the same writer, right?
Yeah, I think he does all the shows like that on
is
HBO.
that David Simons? Is that his name? David Simon?
I believe so, yeah. Something like that. But I'm a fan of John Bernthal, and he's really good in this so far.
Hand down.
You don't like John Bernthal?
He's okay. He's just too, like, I don't know, too macho or too muchacho,
Did you watch
too macho
Daredevil
man.
yet?
No, I watched the first season, but I didn't watch any of the Punisher stuff.
Okay. That's where he won me over, because he was really good as Punisher.
I really did not
which
like him in
is-
Walking Dead.
I didn't like The Walking Dead at all, so I'm okay with that.
I did, but his character, he dies in the first, like, in the comics. He dies in, like, the first 6 comics, and they put him, like, you know, I think he was, like, he went through season 2, and it's like, just get rid of this guy. He's, like, no personality in that show.
Yeah, but if you're going to take that show and break it apart based off the comics, you're getting rid of, like, the best characters in, Durrell and Merle, because they're not in the comics.
Darl and Merle.
Right. There's no CDC in the comics, so the whole first season ends like in a whole... Oh, yeah, spoilers, I guess, for a, 20-year-old show at this
That's probably
point.
at least 15, yeah.
But, yeah, there's no CDC that they wandered to in the comics. Like, really, after Rick gets out of that hospital bed, it's like the show goes right and the comics go left, and that's about it. You get characters that show up, but that's about it.
Let's be fair. They get about the camping, the trailers, what's his face, the old guy that's on the top of the camper and he's sniping the...
Yeah.
Okay, but...
I don't remember his name. I know what you're talking about, though.
No, I was going to say Merle, but that's not Merle because that's what's his face. That's Stink Palm. Anyways, John Barenthal, we own the city.
Michael Rooker.
Yeah. Yes. No,
that's the actor's name.
Yeah, okay.
You could
Portrait
also
of a serial killer, Henry.
Yeah, or you could call him the blue dude from Guardians, and now I'm doing the same thing.
Yazoo.
Something like that.
The Great Kazoo. Something like that.
He's pretty good in those movies, actually.
We own the city. Let's go. Tell me a little bit more. Tell me a little bit more.
No, it's good. I mean, it's not... Don't go into it. Look, it's a drama. Like, it's a straight up, like, slow burn, like, intense cop drama. Like, from everything I've seen on it so far. And with HBO, they could have one episode where they just take that dial and turn it all the way up to 13. Kind of like in True Detective, where I was like, this is like the slowest moving thing that's interesting. And then they have that one episode where it's like, all right, now the shit's hitting the fan. And they just kind of go from there. It hasn't done that yet. But in 3 of 6 through, and I'm totally hooked on it right now. I'll probably finish it by the time we talk again on Monday. I'll probably have it finished.
Dang.
So,
hey, going back real quick to this incendiary, as it's warmed up, I picked up some kind of fruity notes. Do you get that?
like dates, or like a dry fruit.
I felt like it was almost like a borderline tropical kind of, just really like
no, I'm
subtle.
not getting that.
But you do get a fruity, subtle fruity.
I'm getting like a subtle fruity, but more of like a dates or a raisin or like something that's a dehydrated type fruit.
I just got like a real quick taste of it, and then it was gone. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I'm not getting that.
Oh, hey. So for the audience at home who can't see this because this is not a visual media yet, so we're gonna move on to our third beer. I'm gonna say what mine is, and John, you can.
Is that Little Wook?
Thanks for ruining it. This is Little Wookie. It's an IPA. It's got a big Wookie and a little one behind an orange bush, and one of the trees is like the state of Michigan. The thing and this is 6.7% alcohol by volume. It's a West Coast style IPA, hopped with Columbus, Simcoe, and Chinook. Keep cold, drink fresh. Of course, you can follow them at Arvon Brewing Co. This has a date on it.
Oh,
May 3rd. I don't know if you can't, probably it's too bright, but it's like right here.
I can't see it now.
Yeah, May 3rd, 2022. Interesting.
So this one should have came out right around the same time as that, because I know it was in the same like drop when that one came out. I just didn't see that one to get. I do like the can art on that one, though. It's just fun.
Yeah.
So my beer is named after Sean's thoughts on clowns. It is Dark Rage, which is a 11% imperial stout. I'm reading off of the description on it with aromas and flavors reminiscent of cappuccino. This creamy coffee and vanilla conditioned imperial stout finishes smooth with moderate sweetness. So it's a coffee stout.
This is bubbling. I think I shook it a little bit too much. I was getting excited about the date on it.
I got beer splooge on me.
Yeah. So pouring this little Wookie.
Holy shit.
It's coming out really golden. It's like immediately, right as I cracked it, I could smell those kind of West Coast, kind of typical piney, resinous, maybe a little, of course, dank, and there's a little fruity in there too.
Can you see how full this can is?
Let me see real quick. Yeah, kind of.
It's literally like
bubbling over.
Flowing onto the, yeah.
This one, when I opened it, the head was like coming through the top of the can. But this is super golden. This is West Coast style. This is like really clear. There's a little bit of sediment in there, but I can easily see my fingers through the glass. Its head's really nice and bright white. Nose on it. Again, like I said, resinous, little dank, a little funky. There is a fruit, almost like an orange peel.
So I'm excited for this. This is kind of everything that I want when I open a big, when you tell me 11% Imperial Stout, this is kind of so far everything that I want. As soon as I opened it, like the whole room started smelling like coffee.
Yeah.
Which is good. I want that punch in the face when I open a big beer like this. It pours like motor oil. It is thick. It is dark. It is, I haven't tasted it yet, but it looks quite viscous. I mean, even holding it up to a light, I'm not seeing anything through it at all. As my light is behind me, I didn't turn my light on today like a moron. It's got that dark, creamy, like coffee colored head, which makes sense for what this says it is. It's on the nose. It smells like a vanilla latte, but intense. The name doesn't match the beer. There's no rage in that at all. This is just, it's actually not that sweet. There's some vanilla to it. Like it's definitely got a vanilla presence on it, but it's almost more bitter and coffee forward than it is sweet forward. And it's still got that nice thick body. This, as far as a coffee stout goes, this is just a fantastic beer.
What do you give it on your hot dog scale?
Oh, hot dog on the beer scale.
Melted chocolate on hot dog scale.
If we're putting so I'm going to put beers on a 5 hot dog scale because they're not
Untapped
movies. They don't
that,
get the, yeah. So we want to be consistent here.
Yeah.
I'd probably give it about 4.5 corn dogs out of 5 hot dogs.
Going for the corn.
Well,
Stomach can't digest it. Can't digest the husk. You got to chew it.
That's what the coffee's for. Helps you digest.
Helps you pass
How's that?
it. This is really, it's very West Coast. I mean, obviously it's a West Coast IPA, so hits those notes. Definitely has a very resinous, bitter finish. It has a kind of a little bit of a oranginess up front. It tastes, I'm odd, and this is one of the notes that I like to use when it meets this kind of flavor profile. You get like a tangerine that is a little, not a cutie because those are too sweet, but it's like a tangerine where it kind of dries a little bit in the peel, and you chew it and you're getting kind of that like membraney, pithy membrane kind of flavor. That it's really got that going on, and then it gets, that's like up front, and then the swallow is this kind of sweeter orange, a little bit of a kind of barely sweet orange, and then it's really resiny on the finish, but the aftertaste isn't quite as dry as some West Coast. You know, you drink a West Coast and it's super bitter, and you're like, yeah, I gotta take another drink to replenish the dryness or the wetness in my mouth. This isn't like that. It doesn't really hang on the aftertaste, which I like, because sometimes that dryness can just pull so much out of your, moisture out of your mouth. You're just kind of like, ugh. You get that kind of like tongue scrape feeling.
You get hot mouth.
You want to scrape your tongue to kind of like get some kind of feeling back, but this doesn't do that. Little Wookie. It's a little Wookie.
Granted, I don't buy a ton of their IPAs, but that looks very light for an Arvon IPA.
This is probably as close to traditional IPA, which they don't do much of anything traditional. I mean, they were like one of the first ones. Like I said, trying Detour Reef, this is 6.7%. I think I said that. But this is like trying Detour Reef as the first Arvon beer I had. They didn't do anything that wasn't New England. I mean, that was like their big thing when they started doing IPAs was all New England. I was only picking it up from a store. So I'm not saying that Arvon, if you're listening, I'm not saying that's all they did. But I'm saying from what I was exposed to via like social media and going to Siciliano's, basically all the stuff on their shelf was those New Englands. And I found out, oh yeah, they have Jurassic Haze, they have Bush Wookie, Little Wookie, of course, is the offshoot of that. And I mean, they do a lot of different things as we've, run the gamut on this show so far. We talked about a fruited sour, a kettle sour, both had a dark Pilsner, which, we both said basically not a lot of people do. And now you have is it barrel aged? What you have, barrel aged stout?
I don't believe this one's barrel aged. I think it's just an imperial.
And then I have a West Coast. I mean, geez.
This is not barrel aged, which I hope that this is sitting somewhere in Grand Rapids in a barrel, because that might be worth their bombers are pretty pricey, but that might be worth it. Having that little bit of bourbon, extra little bit of burn, a little bit of kick to it, I could see that going a lot. Well, it'd be like KBS back when KBS was good.
Yeah.
So
I got two questions for you, and I remembered what I was going to ask before.
Okay.
And let me spout them out before I forget what the second one is. First one, I know that you're not a big IPA guy, but do you have, if you had to pick an IPA style, let's just limit it to West Coast. Oh, you're not going to let me finish?
Well, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, if you're going to call out West Coast, then there's no need to even continue.
Well, I'm assuming you were going to go between two styles, but go ahead.
I was going to go three. I was going to consider like a Midwest, its own thing, like a two-hearted. So West Coast, Midwest, New England.
I'd probably say Midwest, but that's probably just me being a homer, because I do like, as much as I'm not big on IPAs, like, this is the woe is me problem of the fucking century, but you run into a bar here, like around here, where the only thing you might be interested on the menu is Two Hearted. Oh no.
Yeah.
So fucking terrible.
The number one rated beer 3 years in a row. Thank you very much.
It might not be my number one beer, but I'm totally like fine with that being the number one rated beer. Like, I can't argue that.
Yeah. If it's between that and Pliny the Elder, and you can't ever find Pliny the Elder anywhere outside of like three different counties, I'm okay with Two Hearted being number one.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, it's just a really well-made beer too. Like, again, even a guy who doesn't really drink much IPA, I can't argue that that's damn fine. It's a great beer. There's a reason why so many people love it.
Yeah.
So
it's a nice drinkable IPA. It's a moderate ABV. It's 7%. And it's super drinkable, I mean, it satisfies people that are into the bitter, because it does have that bitterness, but it satisfies people that maybe like they're not, if they're just going to have one basically, and they're like, yeah, it's too bitter, I'm just going to have one beer. 7% is pretty good. And if you're drinking one beer and it's 7%, you're probably not the type of person that's throwing back multiple, imperial stouts laying down on your staircase, because you couldn't make it up the stairs kind of person. I don't speak from experience at all.
I haven't laid on my stairs in a while, but the other thing it does, though, that like,
let's make that tonight.
Turn this into, maybe. The other thing Two Hearted does really well, though, and I talk about this with bourbon more because I have a bourbon that I throw in this category for what I'm about to say. Two Hearted is that rare beer that is somehow a perfect beer that you could give to any newcomer to craft and say, this is what craft beer is. And they're going to get a pretty good example of what, if you were to say craft beer in a nutshell, which is ridiculous because there's a billion different things. And someone's going to hear me say this and be like, yeah, but like you could put Two Hearted down and I could give you Bigfoot or whatever. And you're not even talking the same sport at that point.
Yeah.
But if you just wanted to say, here's a really good starting point to say this is what craft beer has to offer, I think Two Hearted is a really good jumping off point. At the same time, your most grizzled, like snoobery, like I only drink new beers that I've never had more than once. If you put a Two Hearted in front of them, unless they're just really big assholes, they're going to admit that it's still a really good beer.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, like, I don't know anyone who, outside of someone just being a contrarian dick, that doesn't admit that's just a really fantastic beer. And there's not a lot of beers that you can say that about. Even if you take a beer like High Life, or a beer like, what's another good one that's like got national attention? A good, like, Wood Stout. That's a beer that's, I think that's still available pretty much everywhere when that comes out. You know, you're going to find people that don't like it for a handful of different reasons, where I can't think of anyone who hasn't sat down, and I've heard people say that, you know, Two Hearted's not necessarily for them, but they can still say this is still a really well-made beer.
Yeah, they appreciate it for what it is.
Right.
Okay, so I have another question, and you made me think of something else. So remind me that my second question, just say kettle sour. So when I ask you what my question was, my second, like, appended question, or second part of the first question, what is, when you think of beer snob, like, there's a thing that I think in my head when I want to represent a beer snob, and I say this, you know, like, oh, it has, I'll just give you my tell. When I'm saying, like, a beer snob and they're talking about beer, I say, like, oh, it has subtle hints of coriander. That's like, if you ever hear me say that, that's me, like, mocking somebody that's, like, super just takes it too seriously. Do you have a term or like a phrase that you use that's like a signifier for do you have a phrase that's like your subtle hint of coriander phrase that can, you know, put somebody into a box where it's like, oh yeah, that person's too into craft beer?
I don't have a phrase, but I have a adjective I would use to describe them.
Go.
Which would be pretentious.
Yeah, that's not very inventive or imaginative. I thought you were going to say something else.
Accurate.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to say, like, oh, fuckery or something.
No, that's... Fuckery actually is more of the, I don't know, closer to the brewer half the time than the beer snob. So it's how you get, like, Fruity Pebble, like, Sour Patch Kid beers. So...
Hey, we've had some of those and we like them.
We do like them, but fuckery is what leads to them. Let's not act like it's coming from, like, you know, the book of the home brewing handbook says, you know, throw 40 pounds of fucking Sour Patch Kids into a 5-gallon boil.
I don't know if you heard about this, but back like hundreds of years ago, there were these Belgian monks, and they would have their open casks with the beer fermenting, and they would just throw like tons of Sour Patch Kids in it just to liven it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. So
when I think Belgian monks, I think Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah. If nothing screams Belgian monk like a Sour Patch Kid in a beer. All right, so the question I wanted to get back to you about, it's not, I guess it's, I'm looking for your thoughts. So I've kind of been developing this thing where it's like kettle sour is code word for the beer for people who don't like beer. Like, we're going to make this, it's not going to be sour. We're just going to make it super fruity. It's going to be the craziest, fruitiest thing you've ever heard of, and it's going to be qualified as beer, but it's not, like, we're not going after people that like beer. We're going after people that want to try the new thing, or we're going after people that, like, you want to get somebody into beer. It's kind of like the seltzer of the beer world, right? Like, yeah, my wife, my girlfriend, my fiance just doesn't like beer, so they have a seltzer.
Well, Zach likes beer, but he likes sours, so.
I feel like kettle sour, not traditional sour, not like the Jolly Pumpkin sour, not like the Barrel and Beam sour, not like the real, like, wild ale sour. Even we'll go to some, like, Brewery Vivant sours. I feel like kettle sour is now code word, or heavily fruited sour, maybe that's more accurate, is code word for super fruity beer that's not really sour at all, but hey, try this because you don't like bitter stuff. You like candy, basically.
I can see where you're coming from with that. I don't necessarily disagree with you. The only thing I would say is I think that does appeal to the craft beer crowd just as much as the more traditional sour style of beers, just because I think at the end of the day, where you're really like looking at that craft beer snob thing, I think they just want something that's liquid and has alcohol in it, but they don't like spirits for whatever reason. I think and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I'm kind of in that category too, to an extent. I don't think that a product like Smooge that we were talking about comes around if there wasn't some kind of interest in something like that. I could agree with you that I don't know that calling it beer is necessary, especially when you get into the stuff like, I'm not even sure if Smooge is classified as beer, but is it a seltzer?
It's a heavily fruited seltzer, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that's... So, again, this breakfast bowl, like, the body on this alone and the carbonation on it, I don't even know if that is carbonated now that I'm saying that, thinking back on it. If I gave this to my dad, who doesn't drink anymore, but when he did, if I said, here's this beer, and he poured that, he would look at me like I'm a fucking idiot.
What the hell are you giving me?
Right.
I didn't want cereal milk, asshole. I wanted a beer.
Exactly. Yeah. Then he hits me and then
slaps
we move
you in
on.
the face, you cry, and he laughs, and, you move on, and he takes you to the tire shop or whatever.
Just like the good old days.
Like you do. I don't know.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know that... Maybe it's one of those things that I could see it moving at some point in the future to kind of like what you do with spirits, where there's just a new category that's named and it's no longer called beer. It's called, spirits. You start getting shit like liqueurs and all that, where they just started throwing like cream and sugar and all kinds of other shit with some alcohol in it, and they don't know what else to call it. So they call it a liqueur.
They called it Beelzebub. And it's a new beer style.
Than that. That's he probably drinks Rumpelmans, which is a schnapps. So
that sounds like a Beelzebub. Rumpelmans.
Yeah, pretty much.
Rumpelstiltskin. Hey, I'm stomped to the floor.
Maybe that's what ends up happening with those things, is maybe they end up getting classified as something different, like some new category that's not quite beer, not quite seltzer. I don't know. Alka smoothie or something like that. But
well, and to make it clear, I'm not saying that it's not something I even enjoy drinking. I mean, we did breakfast bowl. I picked up a couple others. This isn't some kind of dig on Arvon. This is an Arvon episode. I think these beers are amazing. I think that what they've done is insane, and the amount of like ingenuity that goes into making something like this, it's like mind blowing. But I just feel like there are so many. I just feel like there are a lot of breweries that are doing this. They're calling them, and in Arvon's credit, these are sour. Like they have a sourness to them. It has that.
Yeah, for sure.
They're called kettle sours. They're called heavily fruited sours. They are sour. But there are so many places that do this. So many breweries that do beer like this that are not sour at all. It's just like 450 North. I don't know if they call them fruited sours. I think they call them fruit ales, or I honestly don't remember.
I think they call them smoothies.
They do, but I'm wondering if they want to go by.
You're right, though. They're not sour. I'm not going to claim that I've had many. I've had two, and part of that is because this is my opinion. I'm going to throw Arvon in with this. I would rather, I think this breakfast bowl that I got, I think I paid like $5 for this one can.
That's it?
Or right around there.
I need to go to your store.
I think so. What'd you pay?
I paid $7 for this.
Okay. Maybe I paid $7 for it. I don't remember now. I took the price tag off of this one, but even at $7, I'm fine with that. But the 450 North cans, they're straight up like $10.50 each. Yeah. So if you want to get 4 of them, you're looking at a $40 investment for 4 beers. And we talked about this on I think it was the Three Floyds episode, where if I'm getting into the point where at $40, I can get a bottle of bourbon, I can get a bottle of gin, maybe both, for that price, and get a lot more out of my investment that I'm going to like as much, if not more, than these 4 beers. So for me, like, I'm not necessarily opposed to a $10 price. This stout is a $10 stout.
Yeah.
It's like $9.50 or whatever it was. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to paying $10 for a beer. Again, I'm sure I'll do it again by the end of this weekend, if I'm being realistic here. But when it comes to like just getting something that is essentially a Slurpee with like 4% alcohol, well, shit, I could go buy a bottle of vodka for $10 and buy a Slurpee for $1 and be ahead.
I've never had success with pouring vodka into a Slurpee. It melts.
It turns into sugar. Yeah, it does. But I mean, it's sugary alcohol. Then it's a cocktail at that point.
It's a liqueur.
It is a liqueur.
It's a Beelzebub.
It's a fruited sour. So here's what you do. You buy a bag of Sour Patch Kids. You buy a Slurpee. And you buy
some Belgian ale.
Yeah, all that stuff. You throw them all in. and you have yourself a Belgian liqueur sour patch slurpee slushy beer cocktail.
And then you choke on your own vomit and die.
Or you have
in
the
middle of
worst
the night.
fucking hangover imaginable.
Yeah, you sleep on the stairs.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
So,
You make it to the stairs if you're lucky.
and I haven't had luck with vodka and a Slurpee either because I haven't tried that since I was like probably 22.
Yeah.
I kind of determined that wasn't really a necessary venture.
Didn't work.
So,
Didn't work out the first time. Can't perfect this any better.
No. I do like, so kind of to what you're saying with that though, as far as like, this isn't quite a beer. It's basically sweet with booze in it.
Mm-hmm.
I like seeing breweries do that. And I'm not a big, like, I'll drink a seltzer, but I'm not I wouldn't call myself like a seltzer fan necessarily. There is something fun about like, you know, if it's 90 degrees outside and whatnot, it is fun that you can put down like 4 of them, like nothing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're, you know, that's got its benefits. But I wouldn't call myself a fan of seltzer by any stretch. But I like seeing that breweries are doing stuff like that because at the end of the day, one, no one's forcing you to drink any of this stuff. So if you're going to be one of those assholes, it's like, fucking seltzer's not a beer, blah, blah, blah. Fuck off. Go fuck yourself right up the ass and fuck off. You don't have to drink it if you don't like it. Dude, do what the fuck you want. If you don't like it, then don't fucking drink it. You know what? Every brewery's still going to have 12 fucking IPAs on for you. So deal with that. But at the end of the day, these breweries are a fucking business. If by making a seltzer and having one of their, 15 taps or whatever being a seltzer and one being a fruited whatever, if that means that you get, we'll say 20 more people through your door every day, that seems like a good investment to me.
Yeah, keep the door open. That's the most important thing, regardless of what, maybe, like you said, 2 of your 15 things are not beer. I mean, big deal. You get people asses in the seats. That's all that really matters. You keep the doors open. And those 13 other taps that people enjoy, even if they don't like seltzers, then, who gives a shit?
Right. But I mean, every brewery has something that you're not going to like on at any given, usually there's, if it's not a seltzer, most breweries probably have a sour or 2 at most times. But if it's not, so let's just take sours out because those are still technically classified as beers. But if you don't have a seltzer on, you're probably going to see either a cider or a mead or something that has no gluten in it in most places, something along those lines. Or you're going to have soft drinks there. Are you going to sit there and bitch at someone because their rock and rye is not freaking IPA?
I bitch when the rock and rye isn't carbed enough. I don't like the carb on this rock and rye. Take it away, peasant.
Shoo.
Ta-ta.
Turn your nose up at a flat rock and rye.
That's right. Get the hell out of here with that shit. Wait till I tell my Juggalo brothers about this.
Whoop whoop. I told you I've been listening to Alabama too much, so
I guess so.
I'm aware of what these things are.
Yeah.
So I got one more thing that's kind of on brand we can talk about. This is the last thing I told you about that is kind of fucking stupid, but like I said, kind of on brand.
Kind of fucking
hear what
stupid,
this shit show is?
AKA on brand. Let's hear about it.
Yeah. So I kind of hate that this exists because I kind of feel like it's something that we're probably going to have to watch in some capacity because of what it is. Jason Mewes.
Okay.
And Jack Osborne go in the woods and hunt for Bigfoot.
Okay.
As a show.
Okay. So I have questions. So you answered one. It's a show.
Minimal answers.
Okay, but it's a show. It's not a movie.
It's a show.
This is not a fiction. I mean, okay. Let me repreface this. I was going to say this is not a fictionalized account. This is posing as a reality show.
I'm assuming so. It's so it's going to be on Discovery Plus. So it's supposed to be basically I have this image where it looks like Jason Mewes has a water bottle and a walkie-talkie, and Jack Osborne has, it looks like a fishing lure with a weird laser coming out of it. I'm not really sure what's going on here. I should send you this so you can see what I'm talking about. Like I said, it's not good, but
God help us all.
yeah, pretty much. God, I have mixed feelings on Jason Mewes. I don't know why this doesn't want to go. I have mixed feelings on Jason Mewes just as a whole, but I remember not liking Jack Osborne, but he's also like, 30 years older now. So
Through several
maybe
rehabs.
Yeah, probably.
I thought you were going to say it's Jason Mewes making the Kevin Smith face with an overcoat, like a duster on, and Jack Osborne, like, I don't know, biting the head off a bat or something. I was going to like, oh my God, please.
I would say Jack Osborne is definitely the Kevin Smith out of this pairing.
I don't want to be presumptuous, but does that mean that he's put on the weight?
Well, he's about the size of what Kevin Smith is now.
Oh, okay. Good for him. I didn't mean that to be, negative. As a former
when he was chubby,
reformed
that was
fat
like,
person myself, I can talk bad about.
Yeah, but when he was chubby, he was still like, he was like 18 on that show. Like, you can't count that.
If
he wasn't quite at the, he wasn't at the point where he was like matured and learned how to like not eat chicken nuggets all the time. You got a link for it because I copied, but
shouldn't an 18-year-old be mature? Let's talk about this. Let's not spend too much time on it, but shouldn't an 18-year-old be matured, and know not to eat chicken nuggets all the time too?
No, this is America.
America. Oh, it's like a reel or something. He's got like a...
What's that?
Jack Osborne has like a fishing reel or something in his hand, like the
It looks like the phaser guns from A New Hope at the opening scene.
Okay. It looks just like the pole. No. Yeah, but the pole fell out or something. He's just holding the handle sideways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Oh, this is just a special. It's not even a full show.
Thank the gods.
It makes it a little more bearable for when we unnecessarily suffer through it.
Inevitably have to watch it.
Right. So, I don't know. I don't know why I feel like Jason Mewes... Actually, if you just had Jason Mewes in the woods by himself, like talking to himself, looking for Bigfoot, that might be more entertaining, but I feel like Jack Osborne being in the woods with him kind of makes it not as fun.
Yeah, it kind of cheapens it a little bit or something.
Yeah. Or at least there was someone like better in like, I don't know, Danny Trejo and Jason Mewes in the woods.
Danny Trejo and anyone else.
Well, Danny Trejo in everything, period. So,
how about Kevin Hart and Jason Mewes?
I mean, you get the tall, short thing then, so I guess that would be kind of fun.
I was looking through like on Plex, they have the free channels, all the free stuff, all the free, not free, but streaming kind of free channels. I guess they're free. Yeah. There were so many things that popped up that were Kevin Hart related. There was one, it was like, I'm going to butcher this, but it let me paint a picture for you. It was like Cold Balls with Kevin Hart. And it's like an interview show where he interviews athletes. There was like some other thing with Kevin Hart. There were like 6 different things with Kevin Hart that I've never heard of that came out within the last 3 years. And they're all these like little TV shows or just, offshoot things. Like, what the fuck is this?
Do you like Kevin Hart as a comedian?
I don't know if I've actually ever seen or heard his comedy. Like in some of the things that he's been in, I think he's amusing. And I think I've read articles or interviews with him. And I think that he, he's obviously got a sense of humor. He is funny, but I've just never seen his comedy enough to be like, yeah, I like or I dislike. I don't really have an opinion on him. I just know that he's everywhere.
I've only seen like one of his specials all the way through, and I know he was on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, and he was okay on that. I respect the hell out of the man's work ethic because he does like bust his ass like as much as anyone else in Hollywood, really. I just don't think he's that fucking funny.
Yeah, I feel like if you can't make it through a special.
It's not even, I think I made it through a special. I don't remember any of it though, and that's almost just as bad. So, I mean, I've watched, not to really compare them because they're a whole different type of comedian, but like I watch every Jim Gaffigan special that comes out, and I don't know that I could go through and like say this joke was in this special or anything like that. But like, as soon as if I hear it again, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember hearing this before. Like, I know that I've enjoyed each one of them to some extent.
I demand at this moment you recite the Hot Pockets routine for me.
I can't do that, but I can do I do like the whale noises.
Yeah.
Or like plankton.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. That's not my
No?
That's not my humor. Hot
'Cause it's clean.
Pockets.
You have to have people talking about dicks and cocks
Yeah,
and
and
cunts.
shit and rolling around in feces. Clowns.
Yeah.
Burying costumes in dirt. If you don't do that, you're not capturing my dollar. God damn it.
Well, that's pretty fair. I mean,
Get off the
clowns
stage.
are your favorite thing.
Let the real comedians talk. Get the hell out of here. You have to
meant
jerk
to
your
bring this
arm in
up
this
earlier
motion like
when-
this with authority, like you got to put your thumb out there. God damn it.
So I meant to bring this up earlier. We were talking about something beer related at some point. Did you watch the Kyle Kinane thing I shared where he was ranting about craft beer? I think it was when we were talking about lagers.
I think I did.
He was saying that he's a admitted gutter palate drinker. He likes Coors and shit like that, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I'm not shitting on that. It's just that's his thing. And
words.
he was saying that he gets stuck at craft breweries all the time because he's a traveling comedian. So he was going off about he went to this brewery and he told the server, he's like, I like Coors and Miller or whatever, just something light and whatever. And the guy gave him some lager and he goes, this is really drinkable. And he goes, isn't that like the minimum quality to be considered a beverage is to be drinkable?
Yep.
So
I did see that.
it's really out of context now. We probably should have brought that up earlier when we were still talking about lagers and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get the point. You can't call it drinkable if it's like you put it in your mouth and it burns through the bottom of your tongue, onto the floor to the center of the earth. It's not really drinkable.
You know what? That would probably be, someone would probably be into that. So
Once.
they made so Jack Daniels this Christmas made a whiskey that was 168 proof.
Well, that sounds drinkable.
Apparently it was. I didn't get a bottle because I didn't want to pay for it. But so if 168 proof, you're looking at roughly 80%, 85% alcohol in that. It's insane. But people seem to like, oh, it's smooth. I'm like, is it though? Is it just because you can't feel your, innards anymore?
Your pain receptors are anesthetized. I thought you were going to say like, oh,
Pretty
Jack
much.
Daniels made this whiskey that you open the bottle and it bursts into flames. It's like, good. Thanks.
They do make a spicy Jack Daniels. It's like called Fire or something like that. I think one of my favorite like Myers trips ever. I went to, I always kind of like you do with the beer aisle, I always peruse the whiskey aisle at the same time. And at this point, someone made a life decision. There was a bottle of Jack Daniels Fire, and directly next to it was a tube of Astroglide. I was like, oh, decision was made here. I see.
Prep H.
Yeah, it was very like someone's lady is not going to be feeling very well later.
Just pour some whiskey on it. It's fine.
Some fire whiskey.
Let's redefine the definition of whiskey dick.
Whiskey fire dick.
Yeah, there you go. What if they have an emoji for that? What it would be? Eggplant and a fire. And is there a whiskey? There is like a cocktail, like a scotch
It's like a
or something.
cocktail looking thing.
Yeah, bourbon glass, little glass.
It's glass with brown liquid.
Glass with brown liquid, fire, eggplant, water squirt.
All in one.
Yeah.
So, happy face. So,
Sad face after that.
right.
Peach.
So with that, I think this is pretty much a good place for us to start wrapping this. So do you got any closing thoughts on Arvon?
I do. I mean, I know that this is totally not, we've been kind of going off on a tangent that's not really Arvon related, but, we've been having fun with Arvon's beer, which
it's kind of what we do here.
a little bit. But yeah, I mean,
On beer episodes, we go on tangents.
yes. We didn't get any questions, did we?
No, we did not.
Okay.
We're no one loves us.
That's true. Well, my mother loves me. She tells me I'm special. All the
She doesn't listen to
time.
the show.
That's very true, and I don't think I'd want her to. But no, I think
Then again, we were at like running at like an 80% clip of female listeners for a while there. So maybe she was listening and just gave up on us. That would be my mother. My mother gave up on me way early. So if she gave up on us already, that would be very, again, on brand for my mother.
Well, she made your dad take you to the tire shop. So
no, she didn't make him.
all right. So
He
Arvon,
took me there to get me away. Arvon.
to give me away. Arvon. So no, I mean, as much as we've been not talking about beer, Arvon is one of the, they've grown over the years. Like I said, again, this is the third time I've said this. Detour Reef, the first beer from Arvon I tried. It's awesome to see that their not only distribution has spread, like you can get basically anything they release at most of the stores. And we were kind of putting this episode off because it was kind of this freak thing where they weren't getting many drops over here. So it's awesome that they do all the different styles that they do, from barrel-aged stouts to regular stouts. I think one of my favorite stouts of last year was an Arvon beer. It was part of their candy series, part of the Halloween series that they did. Actually, both the stouts that they did were just amazing. I just think that they're one of those breweries that you can pick up any of their beers off the shelf and you're not going to get one that you don't like, as long as you like the style. You're not going to pick up, if you only like kettle sours, you're not going to pick up a stout and be like, this is the best stout I've ever had. You kind of have to like the style that they do. But I think that you can pick any beer off the shelf of theirs in the styles that you like, and you will enjoy their beer or find some kind of good quality about them. And there's only like a handful of breweries in the state that you could probably say that about. Like, maybe a dozen out of the 300 plus breweries, there's probably a dozen to 2 dozen breweries where you could say, I can grab any beer that you make off the shelf and I love it. It's at least a 4 out of 5. Yeah.
4 hot dogs out of 7 bratwursts.
Yeah. Chocolate covered corn dogs.
Bratwursts.
So yeah, that's really what I had. That's one of the things when we talked about breweries that we wanted to talk about. Arvon was top on the list because while they may not be, I don't know how popular they are. I don't know how well, other people, non-enthusiasts know about them, or even some enthusiasts I feel like are still kind of like opening their eyes to them. But they distribute beer around us, you and I, in Southeast Lower Michigan, and they deliver, like we mentioned already. It's just, it's easy to find their beer for the most part. I just think they're just a brewery that does great beer, and I always look forward to the new stuff that they put out. And whenever I see a new drop at my local bottle shop, I'm almost always picking up 1 or 2 other new things.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as far as like when I see something of theirs drop, I will, again, almost always grab 1 or 2, if not more. Even outside of the show, like when either of us hit a bottle shop, like if we find something that the other might not find, there's a pretty common text thread that will go through of, do you need this? Yeah. Do you want this? Whatever. And I would say that Arvon is probably pretty high on the list of like breweries that if one of us doesn't grab it, the other will. I know you have a can of Arvon sitting at your house for me right now.
Yeah.
So as far as ones that we go out of the way to like make sure that the other one finds, it's pretty common. I don't know how this really like gauges the craft beer community as a whole. I will say for the shops that I frequent, which are just because they're closer to me than where they are to you, and I don't have to go through the shithole construction over on the highway by your house right now, Arvon usually sells anything that they send to the stores I go to within 2 days. So if you don't get there within it, you might not have to rush there and get it the day that they tell you that they have it, but if you wait a day or 2, you're probably not getting it. So you're not going to find too many shelf turds of an Arvon beer at any point, which is a good thing. And I would go as far as to say, even if you pick up an Arvon beer and it's not the style that's your bag on a regular basis, you're still going to get a beer that you're going to realize is a damn good beer. You're getting a good, well-made product every time out the gate. Even the stuff that I've had, like, they're definitely a brewery that's in the category of, they have beers that I don't like because it's not my thing, but I've never had one that I would say is a bad beer. Like, I can't think of a single one like that. And the fact that you can get stuff delivered to your home, it just takes it to a whole second notch with it. I never would have got those Halloween beers that you were talking about if they didn't do that. So I'm infinitely like thrilled about that. And truthfully, I look forward to ordering again at some point in the not too distant future if they have something pop up that just doesn't hit distribution here. So we're probably going long on this episode. That's okay. That tends to happen on these because, when you drink, you ramble. So, but yeah, Arvon's fantastic. Check them out. If you're on the east side of the state like us, make the pilgrimage over to Grand Rapids. Go check out Arvon. They're definitely one of the breweries that you need to check out. I'm sure at some point in the not too distant future, one of us will mortgage our house and we'll make the trip out there and go do a mandatory brewery video for that because, them gas prices be real, yo.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Arvon is a brewery that, while we haven't been there, like you or I haven't been there, that's definitely on the mandatory must visit, just on reputation alone.
Just based off the beer.
Yeah, the stuff that we've tried that we loved, it's definitely going to be a must hit for us.
Absolutely. In the meantime, follow Arvon. You can find them on all the social medias as well. They're definitely a great follow because if you do want to take advantage of the delivery service, anything that pops up that they're going to offer for delivery, you can see it. I always see it on their Facebook feed first. I'm sure it's on their other socials too, but algorithms and whatnot, that's where it pops up for me first most of the time. Aside from following Arvon, you should follow us. We are at Dewey Pod Monster on all the social medias. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, probably something else I'm forgetting.
Friendster.
And what's sir?
Friendster.
The fuck is that?
What?
Friendster. MySpace. Follow us on everything except Friendster because I don't know what that is.
This guy's too young.
All right. So also make sure to check us out at anchor.fm/DeweyPotMonster. If you want, you can leave us a message there. We would like the feedback. Leave us questions for the next beer episode. We will answer them. Leave us feedback. Like I said, we can play it back. Sean, plug your plugs. Where can people find you at?
You can find me at youtube.drafttherapy.com. That'll take you directly to my YouTube channel. I talk mostly about Michigan beer because I am, as John has told me, only John's told me this, that I am the authority on craft beer for Michigan. I do some seltzers and I've been, branching out a little bit, but you can find me on social networks at Draft Therapy.
All right. Well, in the meantime, drink good beer, drink craft beer, drink whatever the fuck you want. But have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Yeah. Fuck beans. Fuck a duck.
This week being an exception. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hold your applause.